You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, everyone. We're back at Stellar Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tudor Francu, and I have a great guest from the big state of Texas, Cristin Dickerson. How are you, Doctor?
Doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Awesome. I want to start this with, a very simple question that I kind of ask every guest, and feel free to give your definition of it. What does success mean to you, and how do you see your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is really to make things better for other people. I'm certainly an acts of service, love language, and I want to make things easier for people. I want to make sure that the things that I'm doing every day matter to other people, and that I'm doing it with the right people and in the right place. Awesome.
So can you give us a little bit of overview of your professional success so far? How did you start? What was your journey? And where are you now?
25 years in, yeah, it's not a short story, but, I did attend medical school in Houston at University of Texas and did a radiology residency. And the first day I did radiology, it was like coming home for me intellectually. It just fit the way I think, the differential diagnosis and the helping other doctors really solve the problem of what was going on with their patient. I loved the diagnostic part of healthcare from the beginning. And so first day I knew that's what I wanted to do. Really interviewed all over the country for residencies, and everybody asked me why I wasn't just staying in Houston at MD Anderson, and ultimately ended up doing that. The faculty there was just incredible. I was chief resident there, which was really nice because, there really had not been many females in leadership roles in radiology. Women just didn't go into radiology. And so that was, I think, a nice success. And ironically, my first job was at Diagnostic Clinic of Houston, a big multi-specialty group in the Texas Medical Center. And I went there because I just wanted to practice. I never wanted to get into the business of medicine. I wanted somebody else to handle that. And there's a lot of irony there. And within about 5 years, I was on the executive committee, a partner. And within 3 years of that, I was actually the managing member of the group, because what I found was, and we had a new business office director, and I was rotating through being head of the radiology department. And she brought me a box of what we called yellow tickets. And it was all the work that we did nights and weekends over at the hospital next door. Everything I did on call, everything that took me away from my family. And the hospital was not giving us enough demographic information to build that out. And it was literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of work sitting in a box. And so I pretty much took that on, took the denials over with insurance companies and fought those. Did it for the radiology group, and then ultimately worked, with the CEO and CFO to get that throughout the clinic. And it was the wonderful thing. There were some great things about that. But, I think that's one of the best ways to practice medicine is in that multi-specialty group that has imaging, it has labs, has all these capabilities in-house, has specialists that you can see right then the same day. All of that is just such a beautiful way to practice. And it was a great place to be to start my career. And I also got my kind of MBA, having a CEO and a CFO that I worked with on a day-to-day basis. I learned so much about the business of medicine from them. I owe them a tremendous debt. And being in that position, being put in that position by my fellow physicians to fill that role at a very early time in my career. But I really enjoyed that time. They ultimately ended up passing the radiology off to a hospital system, which they were working, and so. By then, we had already started a new radiology group because we went digital, and suddenly we had all this extra capacity. And so we got permission from the clinic to start, reading outside studies. And so I just seamlessly went over to that, went on in my career. We were staffing at the other big multi-specialty group in Houston. And I continued that part of my work until 2020. But meanwhile, in the background, in 2013, I decided to solve a problem in my community, which was that there wasn't affordable medical imaging. And if I just opened another imaging center, I was going to have the same problem every other imaging center had, which was terrible reimbursement in network. You had to play the out-of-network game, which has since dried up. That would have been a terrible model. And they're at 50% capacity because it's very hard to compete with the hospital systems. So 70% of doctors, are incentivized by the hospital systems to send their imaging there. And so, was thinking about different business models. And came upon the idea of Travelocity, where you're using untapped, unused resources, buying them at a discount and passing the savings along. And so it turns out that radiologists under the Stark laws can do lease arrangements, unique lease arrangements with imaging centers, because we're not the referring physician. There's another referring physician. And so we were able to establish that with the centers we were reading for and start sending patients there. They were calling, do I really have to pay $3,000 for this MRI? And I'd say, no, we'll get you scheduled. $500 over here, $400 over here. And we controlled the reports. We controlled that there was a musculoskeletal radiologist reading or a neuroradiologist, whoever needed to be doing it. And it was a great model. But I had been run a self-funded healthcare plan. And when I was at Diagnostic Clinic, and I knew about direct contracting, and I thought, what if employers could do this nationally? And so now we are in 50 states, and we schedule thousands of patients for CTs, MRIs, PET CTs, and we save employers literally millions of dollars. There's a school district in Florida that first year we saved them 1.5 million, second 2.5 million, third year 3.7 million. So I'm helping lots of people, and that's what I consider success.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and I want to kind of pick on your story a little bit. The fact that you you started with the idea that you're not a business person and you don't want to do business in medicine, and you end up doing exactly that, and very well, actually. What kind of advice would you give to a doctor who obviously we're not taught business in medical school, and the educational part in that domain is very limited? Any tools, any advice, any pieces of information that you can give someone to educate themselves into the business of medicine?
Yeah, and there are a number of organizations now that are really helping with that as well. I'm actually on the Texas Medical Association Independent Practice Committee, and we're working on that problem. Doctors can be independent. The problematic thing right now is that we don't have independence and control most of the time. Most doctors are employed, it's private equity and hospitals that are controlling healthcare. We can take it back because there's an emerging market, direct contracting, that needs doctors. I mean, the supply is critical right now. And I would say direct primary care is the first piece of that. And, you don't have to be naturally a primary care doctor to start into direct primary care. My friend who's done that in Houston was a pulmonary intensivist. And what he found was in his practice, when he was staffing the pulmonary ICU, 99% of the patients should not have been there. They needed good end of life counseling, or they needed good primary care. They should never have ended up there. And so he started studying models of healthcare and came up with direct primary care. And this was maybe 7 years ago. He has First Primary Care in Houston, and he has a number of doctors working under him. But being a pulmonary intensivist was a fantastic thing to be doing during COVID. And so, he could be the high-level caregiver and have people under him doing, the more primary care. But, I think that's a fantastic model. And I think you have to see if that can be right. I'd love to do direct primary care. I did a clinical year, and I think as a radiologist, I know a lot about healthcare in general, and I'd love to do DPC later in my career. But I think there are also ways that people who have patients with doctors who have chronic care patients can still do subscription-based medicine. So the DPC, direct primary care, is subscription-based healthcare. Instead of paying for episodic care, instead of every time you go to the doctor, you pay for it, or the health plan pays for it, you pay, say, $99 a month, and all your care is taken care of, and you have 24/7 access to the doctor. It's an amazing model, and they have small panels of patients, and they take great care of them, and they have great relationships, and it's really a tremendous model. If you are,
well, I believe that this model would be very helpful for like the direct patient specialties.
Yes,
care,
that's what. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So if you get into rheumatology, somebody who's seeing patients quarterly, but the patients need advice in between. They're not really getting great care because they see them quarterly. But what if something comes up next week? I think it's a tremendous model for chronic conditions. And the incentive of both of those models is to keep patients well. It's not for them to keep getting sick or keep getting results from you. It's to make it efficient for them and get them healthier so they don't see you as frequently. And so the incentives of both the doctor and the patient are aligned monetarily.
What is the insurance input on this model?
There are emerging models. There's a company that's managing smaller employer healthcare plans called Decent. It's out of Austin, Texas. And Decent, it has DPC at its core. We're seeing more and more employer-based health plans that have direct primary care or some other subscription-based primary care, maybe a near-site clinic, on-site clinic, even telehealth, but they've got some kind of primary care, accessible primary care at their core. And I think that that is the first and foremost part of changing healthcare, because that's one of the things that's so broken. The other is that those episodic primary care doctors are feeding their systems. They're feeding whoever's taking them out to lunch the most at the imaging center or the hospital system that they work for, rather than finding great prices the way a great primary care doctor would do. They want to take care of the patient's wallet as well, and so they negotiate great prices for the patients. And then finally, I think you get to things like me, where it's one-off care, and you have to still be fee for service, but you have a transparent single price that's all bundled. It's all in. There are no surprise bills. And employer health plans, these new health plans, are really needing the supply on the doctors willing to do that. And I think we're going to see with this United Healthcare tragedy, that it is a tragedy on many levels. I think as we see the repercussions of this and the attention it has had, I think we're going to see more people advocating for themselves and going out and getting direct care.
Yeah. I want to kind of circle back on the new model of radiology in particular. And, we all know that your specialty is one of the best paid specialties in medicine, I would say. But in the same time, in the last few years, this whole digital era kind of moved the readings, online and outsourced them, I would say, to different other countries. I won't say specifically where, but we all know what's going on. How do you see this model and this tendency, basically? How do we keep this in-house, so to speak, without, bleeding information outside of the United States medical system?
Right. That's one of the reasons I do what I do, because, DPC doctors, people can go get a direct contract with an imaging center. What I'm going to tell you is we're vetting the center. I mean, if I tell somebody says, how do I tell if it's a good imaging center? I said, number one, look at who their radiologists are. If they don't list their radiologists on their website, that is the biggest red flag you can have of an imaging center. Absolutely. That's number one. So I agree with you. I think it could creep into, I think it's creeping into some of our competitors' models to do, out of the country reads. Yeah. And certainly the BUCAs have, Medicare, Medicaid have frowned on that. They've put measures in place. So the BUCAs have followed that. The traditional health plans have followed that. But I think it could creep into, and no, it creeps into the direct contracts with independent imaging centers. I know that some of those online platforms that sell cheap imaging, I've never heard of some of I actually know the radiologists who read for some of these centers, and yet when I see reports, I've never heard of these guys. So you do have to be super careful of that. And that's one of the things that we really, that's what I tell people. You may think imaging is a commodity, but it's not. A radiologist protocoling the exam, making sure you're getting the right study. CT chest never needs to be without and with contrast. It needs to be one or the other. So we can save the patient contrast a lot of the times. We can save them half the radiation and significant costs if you've got radiologists involved, real radiologists, as we would say, actually protocoling the exam and actively involved in the patient's care.
Yeah.
Are you a busy medical professional striving to excel in life and work? Stellar Success Podcast brings you the habits and insights of top leaders in medicine and beyond. Discover strategies for balance, growth, and fulfillment in every episode. Follow us on Instagram at Stellar Success Podcast for daily inspiration. Start your journey to success today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
I want to go back to your journey. And as successful as you are right now with your enterprise and your project, I'm sure you probably encountered some steps that didn't necessarily go your way. I don't know if I call them failures, but I would say bumps in the road. What kind of examples can you give us of those things that kind of you learn from them and you continue 100% forward?
Right. I would say too, we've had that were the most damaging just to the psyche. Number one was COVID. Imaging was limited to essential imaging in Texas. I had a team of 25 people that I didn't want to let anybody go. And we just decided, our radiologist decided we'd defer getting paid, and we kept everybody on. We put people on special projects that could make our company stronger and better, and we survived it. But that was one of the scarier things that's happened. The other is we had a competitor sue us for some things that we didn't do. And as as much as that sounds frivolous and not a big deal, if you've ever had an intellectual property attorney bill you, it becomes a huge deal. And so that was another thing that that you wondered if you could survive financially. So we try to mitigate risk in everything we do. We've become SOC 2 Type 2 audited because we've seen what's happened with Shields Imaging in the Northeast. We've seen what happened with Acumen, and we're aggregating a lot of data. And so we went to a tremendous expense this last year to take those steps. It's very interesting because my sister is an attorney and is actually our in-house counsel. And all the time, that's what she sees. Is she sees the risk in the air and finds ways to try to protect us. And you need to have people like that on your team.
Yeah, I think this is one of the subjects that need to be very discussed about, that the fact that not even the idea in medicine is more important than how you protect that idea. And the fact that the legal part of any enterprise, any business is, as important as the business itself. It's kind of scary, but especially in medicine right now, because we're talking about, big amounts of money here.
And I would throw in there that I signed contracts for so many years without reviewing them, without having an attorney review them. Our contracts are what get us paid. I mean, I almost never have bad debt. I've gone from what every doctor has, about 30%. You're paying 30% of your revenue to collect 70% of what you're contracted to receive, to we collect 99.9% of what we're contracted to receive. But it's great contracts. Those great contracts and reviewing any contract that you get into and making sure they're not terms that favor the health plan and not you. All of those things are so important. And I would say, physicians, if you're employed, those employment agreements and even independent contractor agreements, they're critical. People are getting stuck in geographic areas they don't want to be because of and even if the non-compete could everybody says, oh, they're not enforceable. You know what? Radiology Partners has deep pockets, and they're going to try to enforce it. They're going to make it expensive for you to get out of, at least. And I don't mean them specifically, but I'm just saying any big aggregated group of physicians can fight you.
Oh yeah. I had close friends and colleagues that went through nightmares like that. I want to ask you, you're someone who kind of projected the best in us, going from a medical physician to being a businesswoman in medicine. What do you think the most important skills or habits that you have got you to this point?
I think it's the same thing that made me a good radiologist: attention to detail and being organized in your thinking. And the one that I think I'm unique, maybe in radiology, I don't think it's always I don't see this in a lot of my colleagues. I think I have a creativity that helps me see things that what could be done, not just how it's been done in the past. And I think that makes a big difference. And I think you have to open yourself up to that. I was, again, I just wanted to practice medicine, but I got in there and I saw that we could do some things to change the way healthcare, I could get paid right. I just had to find ways to do that. We could, a lot of it, I think the creativity has been maybe the difference between me and most of my colleagues.
Well, that's a big difference. I would say, Warren Buffett said, typical quote, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you're going to work until you die. And I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about this, this idea of physicians being able to retire or just not practice because they're burned out. And most of the time, they don't have any other income streams to rely on other than their own practice or their own time. How do you see this strategy for yourself and in general for someone who approaches the retirement age in medicine? Any specific strategies you have personally, or any kind of investments you like to create those kind of streams?
I think there are two things that I really see being really useful. Number one is going back into primary care, doing that DPC model, because it is, they don't spend many hours in the office with patients. They communicate with patients. They have a totally flexible lifestyle and really seem to enjoy the work. I think a lot of people are leaving because of burnout. And I think direct care offers opportunities for people to do it under their own terms and not how somebody else told you to do it. And then the other thing is that I think is much needed. Plan design in employer health plans is terrible. I mean, I've seen exclusions of foot disorders. We allow bone density exams, only for women above age 65. Well, most of them are osteopenic by then. We got to catch this early. There's just terrible plan design that even as a specialist, so much of this is wrong and based on old data. And, it's reflex. It's not, foot disorders is they don't want to pay for cosmetic stuff. Well, you've got metabolic stuff going on there. And if somebody can't walk, I mean, how are they going to exercise? And how are they going to go to work every day? I mean, it's just, there's silliness. And I think chief medical officer is a very nice opportunity, especially for doctors who have a little bit of business office understanding and feel a little bit of an idea how health plans work. I've actually become a benefits advisor through both Health Rosetta and Validation Institute, because I needed to understand the intricacies of how health plans work. I needed to understand stop loss. I needed to understand all that. I don't think you have to do that to be a good CMO. I think you've got to be the kind of person who can vet vendors like me. The HR person brings me in and, why would you use me? And why would you not use just an app to schedule a cheaper imaging? What's the difference between us? And that's where I see chief medical officers making a huge difference in employer health plans. And so I think that's a tremendous role doctors can take on.
Interesting. Any advice that you would give yourself with what you know right now?
I think I was scared to launch. I actually practiced full-time, and that's, as we know as doctors, that's more than full-time, as a radiologist until early 2020. And it was really kind of COVID, we had a contractual issue, and I didn't really want to be at that imaging center, and, decided that I was going to go full-time with Green Imaging. I think had I been braver, now the way I did it, it protected my family. I have a special needs son. We made sure that there wasn't any financial risk really to us in doing that. But I think the company would have scaled much faster had I been, 100% Green Imaging. I'm still not 100% Green Imaging. I'm still 25% radiologist because I love it. And that's just something I'm going to continue doing. But I think that the company would have scaled faster. And, that's a hard thing to judge really, because this market is emerging. This new healthcare ecosystem, is really coming to fruition. So maybe it wouldn't have made a huge difference. And maybe I did, you never know. And I guess that's I have always felt like there's not got a right answer and a wrong answer. There are a couple that could be right and some that might end up wrong, but, you can make a lot of them work. So that's the thing. I think if I have regrets, maybe that I didn't do it sooner.
I see. Yeah, I mean, especially in business, I think the sooner you start, the better. As well as investing, is like those compound effect that goes along with your profession and your investments too. So, what's new for you this year? What are you looking forward to? What kind of projects do you have in mind? Anything that excites you?
Yeah, I think the exciting thing is that we're really being approached by large employers now. We've even had a Fortune 5 company that we just did claims data analysis for. So I think it's been fun working with small employers, helping small employers, but really the excitement of being able to offer this care and the ability to get care, to get these studies. People can't afford them. They're not getting them. They're getting higher stages of cancer. And being able to offer that to larger populations is really exciting. And that's the big change I see on the horizon, is that these large groups are saying we can't keep doing the traditional plans only. We've got to put these solutions in place that offer better care at a more affordable price.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, especially in radiology, I think the cost of the specialty itself, of the studies themselves are astronomical compared to other specialties. How can someone get in touch with you, learn more about your company, what you're doing, anything, any more details?
My email address is drd@greenimaging.net. Or if you just go to our website, I think there's Ask a Radiologist, and you can just drop an inquiry in there. I love mentoring people who want to get into direct care. looking for radiologists. We're very happy radiologists at Green Imaging. And it's a fun place to be.
Why green imaging?
Couple of reasons. We save money, but also we also are paperless. We are completely digital. Our employees work from home. It's very streamlined and ecologically green. So
very nice. Well, thank you very much for coming over, Dr. Dickerson, and I hope everybody can relate to your scope and desire to decrease costs especially in radiology medicine. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.